so we can have a recording of this webinar. I wanted to welcome everyone to the business side of your piano studio. Let me introduce myself. My name is Colleen Cole. I'm the Vice President here at the Mayron Cole Music Conservatory, and I am Mayron's daughter. Before we get started, let's talk a little bit about this GoToMeeting software that we're going to be using today. You should see a chat window down in the GoToMeeting panel. If everyone can type yes, then I know that you have found the chat window and also that you can hear me. So if everyone can go ahead and type yes, I would appreciate that. Okay, good. We have yeses trickling in, so I know that everyone can hear me. That's always a good thing. So now you can go ahead and click the little orange rectangle with the white arrow in it. That's going to minimize your GoToMeeting panel. We're not going to need that again until the end of the presentation. You'll be able to ask some questions, and I will be happy to answer them for you. If you could please hold your questions until the end, I would appreciate it. It breaks my train of thought to have to stop what I'm talking about to read any question that comes in. So I would appreciate that. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I want to start off with a disclaimer that this webinar is just for informational purposes. We at the Mayron Cole Music Conservatory, we're not accountants, we're not financial advisors, so please don't take what we're saying during this webinar to be professional financial advice. Basically, we are just portraying for you what we've learned in our experience of running businesses and piano studios, and what we've learned from all of our teachers around the country. You, of course, need to seek the advice of a professional CPA or financial advisor with any questions that you have regarding your own finances. Now, the definition of a business according to the IRS is any activity where you have the reasonable expectation of earning a profit. So if you start an activity and you expect to earn money from it, then that is a business, whether you actually earn a profit or not. So it's the reasonable expectation of earning a profit. That, of course, means that your piano studio is a business. It is not a hobby. You are running a business. You are a self-employed business owner, and therefore you need to treat your piano studio as a business. So we're going to talk about paying your income taxes, making sure that you have insurance, everything like that. Also, if you treat your piano studio as a business, your clients will too. If you treat your piano studio as a hobby, this is just something that you do in the afternoon just for fun, then they will not take you as seriously because they will just consider this to be just some activity that you're doing just for the fun of it. But if you treat yourself as a business, then your clients will too, which means that they will respect the rules that you create in your teaching contract and the different rules that you have regarding makeup lessons and changing class times and things like that. So we need to start with how to create a business. You have a piano studio, or maybe you're thinking of opening a piano studio. How do you turn that piano studio into a legal, legitimate business? Well, the first thing you need to do is file DBA papers. And what DBA means is doing business as. And this is paperwork that you file with your county. It's also known as assumed name. And what that means is if you're going to give your piano studio a name, for example, my piano studio is named Piano Bayou, I am legally Colleen Cole, DBA Piano Bayou. So Piano Bayou is legally me. I am doing business as. I'm working under this assumed name of Piano Bayou. So you need to talk to your county office about what you need to do to have an assumed name to get your DBA. Another option, instead of being a DBA, which is a sole proprietor, is that you could incorporate. Now that's something that you'll want to discuss with your accountant, whether or not you would want to incorporate. But basically the only reason why you would want to incorporate is if, for example, you own another business, or you or your spouse earns a large income that you would want to protect from your piano studio. Let's say, for example, someone decides to sue you for some reason. As a piano teacher, you would want to protect that large income that you have from other sources from the piano studio, and if you incorporate, then that piano studio is a completely separate entity from you. Another reason why you might want to incorporate is if you have a large studio, if you have multiple piano teachers working for you or teachers that are teaching other instruments, and you would want your piano studio to actually be its own entity separate from you. But if you are just going to have a piano studio, it's just you teaching in your home, or if you rent a little space for your piano studio, then DBA should be sufficient. But you would want to talk to your accountant to decide whether or not incorporation is something that you might want to look into. Incorporating does cost quite a bit of money, and becoming a DBA does not cost any money. All right, so you need to set up a business bank account. You need a business checking account, and in that business checking account you can then receive a credit card or debit card. You need to keep your business account separate from your personal checking account. The IRS tends to get suspicious if you mix your personal expenses if you mix your business expenses in your personal checking account. What that means is if all of your piano students pay you all of these checks and you deposit all of them directly into your personal checking account, and from there you're paying, say, your mortgage and your car payment and any tuition for children's schools or anything like that, and out of that same checking account you're also paying to buy music books and maybe a new keyboard. All of those expenses should be completely separate, because buying keyboards is very different than paying your mortgage, and the IRS wants you to keep those separate. So the easiest thing to do is just set up a business checking account. When students pay you, all of their tuition checks go into your into your business checking account, and then any business expenses that you have, you pay from your business checking account. And then once a month, you write a check to yourself for the amount of money that you're going to take home as your salary. It's not considered salary because you're not incorporated, but you could think of it for yourself as, this is the money, this is the one chunk of money that I'm taking home for myself this month. All the other money stays in your business checking account. Now, in order to open a business checking account, you will need the DBA paperwork that you got from the county. If you go into the bank, like I said, my piano studio is named Piano Bayou. For me to go into the bank and open a checking account in the name of Piano Bayou, I need to have this paperwork that proves that Colleen Cole is Piano Bayou, and it's that DBA paperwork that proves that. You also need to have a telephone that is specifically for your piano studio. If you purchase a phone line that is a business phone line, the good thing about that is that you get listed in the yellow pages. So anyone that moves to your area and they're looking for music instruction, they will see your piano studio there. If the phone line that you have is just listed under your name, then of course they would have to know that Colleen Cole teaches piano in this area in order to contact me. So that is the one advantage of having a business phone number, is that you are listed as a business, and so anyone that is searching for just the category of music instruction, they will find you there. If you decide that you don't want to get a business phone number, or you don't want to have a specific landline dedicated just for your piano studio, at the very least what you need to have is a phone number that will not be answered by a child. Basically meaning you need to have a phone number other than just your house phone number. Because of course you are a business and you're trying to portray a business atmosphere to your clients, and if you have a 7-year-old answering the phone, that of course is not very business-like. Also, chances are if you have a 7-year-old answering the phone, chances are very high you won't get that message, which means you just missed out on a piano student that may have taken piano from you for 6 or 7 years. So you can see that that's quite a bit of money that you just lost out on because a child answered the phone. So at the very least, you could use your cell phone number as your business phone number. That way you know that anyone that ever calls you about piano lessons, that you would be the only one to answer that. You need to have business insurance, and you need to have business insurance whether you're teaching in your house or teaching in a studio outside of your house. The business insurance is for 2 reasons. Number one, it covers any loss of property. So if somebody breaks into your piano studio and, say, steals all your keyboards, the business insurance would replace that. The other reason, and probably the more important reason to have business insurance, is for the liability. Let's say, for example, a piano student trips on the walkway into your piano studio and breaks their arm, and they decide that you were negligent for not having fixed that walkway. So they decide to sue you, and let's say that they sue you not only for the cost of their medical expenses, but also just for the fact that you were negligent. So you want to make sure that anything that they win in any lawsuit is covered by insurance and not coming out of your pocket. Now, of course, the chances of that happening are very slim, but it's much better to have the insurance and not have to worry about it than to find yourself in a situation where you could actually lose pretty much everything that you have. Business insurance for a piano studio does not cost very much because, of course, the property that we have in our studios, as far as businesses go, the property is not really high value. Yes, we do have multiple keyboards, and they're not cheap, but as far as an insurance company is concerned, we're not looking at thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment in this piano studio. So it's not very much. So it's definitely worth having. If you are teaching in your home, they now have business insurance riders that can go onto your homeowner's insurance policy. So that's something that you would want to talk to your insurance agent about, whether or not they would want to put that rider, that business insurance rider, on your homeowner's insurance policy, or if you would want to have a separate policy specifically for your piano studio. All right, a sales tax permit. Now, a sales tax permit is not something that you necessarily need to obtain. You only need to have a sales tax permit if you are going to be reselling any material that you buy for a profit. You do not have to pay sales tax on a service, which of course is your piano teaching. So the only time you would need to pay sales tax is, let's say, for example, you're buying your piano music from us, and we're going to go through this step by step. But if when you sell our piano music to your students, you actually earn a profit on that piano music, let's say that you sell it to your students for more than you buy it from us for, therefore you've made a profit on it, in that case you would have to pay sales tax. If you buy your music from us and you sell it to your piano students for the same amount of money that you bought it from us for, then you do not have to pay sales tax. It's basically a pass-through expense. You bought something and you handed it to them and they handed the money. Basically you're just pretty much doing them a favor by ordering it for them. You're not getting anything out of it. So, for example, let's say you buy each of your student textbooks from us for $19.95. There is, of course, shipping that you have to pay on top of that. So let's say that you add approximately $2 a book for shipping, and that's just an estimation. Of course, if you order your books one at a time, then you're going to be paying more than $2 for shipping. If you order, say, 30 books at a time, then you'll be paying less than $2 per book for shipping. But it's good to just come up with an average price for shipping to make sure that you're covered. In some cases, you might be paying a little out of pocket for shipping. In other cases, you might be making a little bit extra for shipping. But in the end, you want it to all be a wash. At the end of the year, what you want is to have brought in the same amount of money for your music books as what you paid us for your music books. And if those two numbers are equal, then you do not owe any sales tax. So, if you buy your book from us for $19.95, you add in approximately $2 per book for shipping, then the total book cost you $21.95. That's how much you paid per book to us for these music books. If you charge your students $21.95, then you do not owe any sales tax. The reason for that is because you didn't earn any money off of it. You made no profit. You bought it from us for that price, you sold it to them for that price. You were literally just helping them out by ordering it. You didn't get anything out of it. No sales tax due. Another example, if you buy your books, same example, for $19.95 from us, you add in $2 per book for shipping, so you paid $21.95 for that book. If you turn around and charge your students, say, $25.95 for that book, well, then you just made a $4 profit per book. In that case, you do need to pay sales tax because you have just earned money off of reselling this item. And the sales tax that you have to pay is on the full amount, on the $25.95, not just on the $4 profit. So if you intend to be earning money off of reselling our books to your students, then you do need to apply with the state that you're in and obtain a sales tax permit. As I said, you have to pay sales tax on the full price of the item, not just on the profit. You also have to pay income tax on the profit of selling that item. On that $4 per book that you just earned, that was money that went into your pocket. You just earned that money. That was income for you. So you have to pay income tax on the $4 per book. And of course, you have to pay income tax on anything you earn teaching piano. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So again, it's through the state that you would need to obtain a sales tax permit if you intend to be earning a profit from reselling materials. And that's not necessarily just the music books. Let's say, for example, you decide to purchase keyboards at wholesale and sell the keyboards to your students at a profit. Then you would need to pay sales tax on that as well. Let's say just any supplies that you would need for piano teaching. I don't know, let's say that you purchase CD players for your students to be playing their CDs on at home. And you purchase the CD players at wholesale, and then you turn around and sell them at a profit. Well, then you need to pay sales tax on that. Anything that you do that earns money that goes into your pocket, you have to pay tax on. Sales tax and income tax. No sales tax on the service, though. No sales tax on the actual teaching of the piano lessons, the tuition. Another good thing that's something you might want to think about when you're starting your business would be joining the Chamber of Commerce in your area. The reason that you might want to consider that, and that's just optional, it doesn't cost anything to join, but it helps your business become part of the community. The Chamber of Commerce very often has welcome packets for people that are moving into your area, and you can have your flyers put in the welcome packets. So anyone that relocates to your area will find out about your piano studio. The Chamber of Commerce very often has different meetings where you can meet different business people in your area. It just helps you become part of the business community. All right, you have to pay your taxes. Now, we have talked about sales tax, but there are other taxes involved with owning a business. One of them is property taxes. Even if you do not own the property that you're using to teach piano, let's say that you're renting a piano studio, you would not, of course, be paying property tax on the land for that studio because you don't own it, but you have to pay property tax on everything that you own that is inside the business. So that would be your keyboards, your tables, your chairs, your CD player, computers, piano benches, literally everything that is in your piano studio that you own, you have to pay property tax on every year. As a business, that's something businesses have to do. So what you need to do when you have your piano studio set up is you need to go ahead and contact your county tax office because you are expected to voluntarily render the property tax information. They expect you to go to them and say, I am now running a business. I need to fill out the paperwork for any property information that you need for property taxes. So you need to go ahead and do that. And like I said when I was talking about the insurance, the equipment that we have in our piano studios is really not high value. We're not talking about $100,000 worth of inventory in some warehouse or something. So don't be worried about the property taxes for your piano studio. They're usually very minimal because these keyboards, once you've bought them and used them, they're now used keyboards. And so they're really not worth very much. So just go ahead and do what you're expected to do and fill out the property tax information, and don't worry about those property taxes. I think that my property taxes last year on my piano studio were like $12. And that's going to be different in every location, so don't hold me to that. But it's not something you need to worry about, being able to come up with the money to pay those property taxes. All right, of course, income taxes. As I said earlier, this is a business and you are earning money, and you are legally expected to pay income tax on everything that you earn. So you have to pay income tax on what you earn teaching piano. And of course, if you do sell anything as a profit, you need to pay income tax on that profit. If you are new to being self-employed, you should also be aware that you will also have to pay self-employment tax as a self-employed person. And the self-employment tax is part of your income tax return, so you don't need to worry about, well, how do I do that? I don't know how to pay self-employment tax. When you're filling out your income tax return in April or earlier, if you decide to fill it out earlier, there will be lines, different forms on there for paying the self-employment tax. If you're used to being employed by a company, the company actually pays a portion of your income tax for you, and I'm not talking about what they withhold from your check. The company actually directly pays some income tax for the income that you earn. Well, when you're self-employed, there is no company paying that portion of the income tax, so you then have to pay basically both portions, the portion as the employee and the portion as the business owner. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. If you've always been employed by a company up until now, and now you're working for yourself, you do need to expect for your taxes to go up a little bit, because you will be adding in the self-employment tax to what you're used to paying. All right, with the income tax, it's very important to keep in mind that this money that you're sending in for income taxes, it was never yours. It will never be yours. It was always the government's. And if you think of it that way, then the moment that your students pay you their tuition, at the very time that you deposit their tuition into the bank, at that moment you need to take out a portion of that income and put it in a separate account. Set it aside. You can have a separate savings account if you want, just for taxes, or you can just leave it in your account, but in your bookkeeping, make sure that you have that set aside. So that way, when it's time to pay your taxes in April, the money's there. You don't have to worry about it. If your students just pay you every month and you deposit all the money in your checking account and you go out and you go shopping and you think that all of that money is yours, then in April you're going to be hit with a very high tax bill that's going to be difficult for you to come up with the money to cover. It's much easier every time a student pays you, you take a certain percentage out of that deposit and you set it into a separate account. It was never yours. You never even thought about it. It was never sitting there in your checking account wondering if you should spend it. There's always something for you to spend money on. So if the money is sitting in that account, you'll probably spend it. So just set it aside, and then you don't have to worry about it. You don't have that sting of saying, oh, all this money is coming out of my pocket. It never went into your pocket. It went directly into your tax savings account to begin with. Okay, well, how much money should you set aside for your taxes? Well, that's something that I cannot answer for you, because there are so many factors involved, deciding how much your taxes will be. How much you're going to pay in taxes will be determined by whether or not you're single or married. If you have a mortgage on your primary residence, then of course you're used to receiving a large tax deduction for that. And so that will affect how much money you need to set aside for taxes. Because if you don't have a mortgage, then of course you're going to need to set aside more money for taxes than someone that does have a mortgage, because the person with the mortgage is used to having that tax deduction. Also, how much you're going to need to set aside for taxes will be determined on whether or not you have another source of income. If you have another source of income, then of course your income is going to be higher than just your piano teaching income. Also, if that other source of income is as an employee of a company, then the amount of money that they deduct from your taxes might actually cover some of the money for your piano teaching. If you're used to getting a tax refund, well, then maybe instead of getting a refund, that refund money will now go towards paying some of your piano studio income tax. So there's a lot of different factors involved. Basically, you're going to have to sit down with your accountant and figure out how much money you need to set aside for taxes. But in general, you usually need to set aside about 15% of your income for taxes. And when you're first getting started, that's a good idea to just go ahead and put aside 15%. And then after a full year of teaching, of course income taxes are due in the middle of our school year, but you do need to get used to what you will be earning for an entire school year. If you're just now starting in September, then the taxes that you pay in April will only be for September, October, November, and December, which of course is not a full year. So don't let this April's taxes tell you how much money you're going to need to set aside, because of course that was not a full school year. But generally, if you set aside about 15%, then that should be enough to cover your taxes. And after a few years of doing your taxes and teaching piano, you'll get a better idea of what percentage you actually need, because again, it's going to be determined by whether or not you're married, whether or not you have a mortgage, whether or not you have other income. And once you get used to how much money you're paying in taxes, then you can better decide how much to set aside. But talk to an accountant. They can very easily help you decide how much money to set aside for taxes. As I said, put that money aside in a separate savings account. Don't spend it. Don't even think about spending it. It's not yours. If you spend it now, then in April you're going to owe that money to the government. And it's just, well, you've seen your income tax return. You see how much money is paid to the government every year for your income. And if you have to come up with that money out of the blue, it's going to be very stressful. So just from years of experience here at the Music Conservatory, we always advise people, set that money aside the moment it comes in, and then your taxes come and go, and you don't even have to worry about it. All right, other things to factor in when you're thinking about your income tax is whether or not you teach outside the house. If you are renting a space for your piano studio, then any expenses that you have for running that piano studio are tax deductible. So any rent that you have, all of your utilities, you're going to have much larger expenses when you're teaching outside the home, and all of those expenses are tax deductible. If you teach in your home, then you might be able to tax deduct a portion of your mortgage and your household bills in your house. And again, that's something that you need to talk to your accountant about. There's a lot of strict rules as to how much you can or cannot deduct from your household expenses. But I do know that in order to deduct anything from your household bills, your piano studio has to be a separate area in your home that is not used for anything other than running your business. So if you have, say, a space above the garage, and that's where you teach piano, and you don't use that for anything else, it's not your living room, it's not your TV room, you only teach piano there, then you can deduct a portion, and it's only a portion of your mortgage and your household bills. And you need to talk to your accountant, because you need to figure out things like square footage and how many hours a week you use the piano studio and things like that. And they have formulas that will help you decide how much you can deduct. All right, so we need to talk a little bit about your budget. And the reason for that is, of course, we as piano teachers do not teach for the entire year. We don't teach for the entire year. It'd be nice if we could. I've always wished that we could teach all year, because it would be nice to have a steady income for 12 months, but we don't. And so we're going to talk a little bit about your budget. That way, if you create a very strict budget for yourself, then you will still have money to pay your office bills if you're renting an office, and to pay yourself during the summer. You don't want to be sitting there in June thinking, well, I'm not teaching this month, so now suddenly I can't pay my bills, I can't go to the grocery store because I have no income coming in. If you budget your piano studio tuition correctly, then you should have money to take home for 12 months a year, even though you're not bringing in an income for 12 months a year. So what you need to do first is figure out your annual expenses for your piano studio. And so what that means is all of your office bills that you're going to have to run your piano studio, and you need to figure out the total amount for the whole year. So that's going to be any rent that you pay on your studio if you're teaching outside your home, whether you're teaching outside your home or in your home, what you pay in insurance, what you pay in advertising, your phone bill and all of your utilities that you're going to count as business expenses, any bank service charges, office supplies, literally everything. Everything you can think of that you will be paying to keep your business up and running. and you need to come up with the amount that it's going to be for the full year. At the beginning of the school year, you need to determine what your income will be based on the number of students that you have. And I think what I always do and what I recommend to teachers to do is to subtract one or two of your students from your equation to factor in for normal attrition during the school year. So what that means is that we're going to create a budget based on one or two students fewer than what you have. That way, if you have a student that quits at Halloween and you have another student that quits at Christmas, you don't have to panic that suddenly you have to redo your budget because now you're going to be bringing in less money than you thought that you were. So just one or two students, just say, I'm just not even going to consider their tuition when I'm budgeting for this year. And the good thing about that is that at the end of the year, you might have a little bit extra left over. And so you can use that money to maybe pay off some debts that you have or put it towards extra advertising for the next school year, things like that. But then if you did have the one or two students quit, then your budget was fine for the whole year. So what you're going to do is first you're going to subtract your annual business expenses. Well, I should say first what you're going to do is take the number of students that you have and figure out what your annual income is going to be. But we'll get to specific numbers in a moment. Then you're going to subtract your annual business expenses. After that, you're going to subtract the percentage of income that you've decided to set aside for your income taxes. And whatever number is left over, you're going to divide that by 12. And that way, your annual income for teaching piano, even though you're only bringing in an income for 10 months, you're dividing it by 12, so that will cover your expenses for all 12 months. That way, you don't have to worry about getting through the summer. As I said, don't have to worry about getting through the summer when you don't have any tuition coming in. Now, even if you plan on teaching in the summer, if you plan on having some summer programs, it's still good to budget your finances as if you're not going to have summer programs. And the reason for that is that we never know how many people are going to sign up in the summer. So what you should do is go ahead and budget your school year, your year starting at the beginning of the school year, based on your full-time students for the school year. And then when you teach in the summer, any income that you earn for that, as I said, that's just extra money. You can either use it to pay off some debts, you can put it towards your retirement, you can put it towards advertising for the next school year, anything that you decide to do for it. That's money that is above the money that you've budgeted that you need to actually get through every month. All right, so let's use a little fictitious example. And I say fictitious because we're going to be talking about how much money this fictitious teacher charges for a school year. And we, of course, do not tell you how much to charge for a school year because how much you should charge varies so much throughout the country. If you live in a city, then you will be charging more than someone that lives out in the country. If you live somewhere like San Francisco, then you're going to be charging more for tuition than someone in Iowa would be charging. People in different parts of the country, they earn more money, but of course their living expenses are higher as well. So you need to decide how much to charge in your piano studio based on where you live. And we talk about that more in other seminars. Let's see here. I'm trying to think which seminars we talk about that in. I think the starting a group piano studio from scratch, we talk about it in that seminar. And creating your teaching schedule and student contract, we talk about how much money to charge in those webinars as well. Okay, so our fictitious example. Let's say you have 55 students that signed up in September. Now, to be safe, we're going to subtract one or two students from our figures just to protect ourselves in case someone quits. So we're going to create all of our budget based on 53 students. The tuition from those other two students is just going to sit in your checking account, and if they end up not quitting, if all 55 students make it all the way through till May, then of course you have a few extra dollars in your account. Okay, so 53 students, let's say, for example, fictitious example, that you charge $600 a year. $600 a year for 53 students will be $31,800 for the entire year. Now, of course, you're going to be bringing that money in over a 10-month period, not a 12-month period. Okay, so let's say that you have figured up all of your expenses, your office expenses for the year. And in this example, we're going to say that you teach at home. And the reason why we have to come up with teaching at home as opposed to teaching outside the home is that your office expenses are very different whether or not you teach at home or outside the home. So let's say, for example, in this example, the teacher teaches at home. So therefore, this teacher's annual expenses to run the business are only about $3,000. That's insurance, buying supplies, advertising, paying the phone bill, because of course the phone is a separate line. Even if you're at home, you might want to have a separate line for your business, even if it's a cell phone. Expenses like that, $3,000 a year. So from our $31,000, we subtract $3,000. That gives us $28,800 a year. Now, we're going to then subtract the 15% that we've decided that we need to set aside for taxes. So that leaves us with $24,480 a year. We're now going to divide that figure by 12 months. So this teacher that has 55 students sign up in September will be taking home $2,040 every month for 12 months. That's how you stretch your income to last for 12 months. You can't just say, well, I have 55 students that are paying me $60 a month, 55 times 60, I'm going to take home that much money every month. No, because then you haven't left any money for your office expenses, you haven't left any money for your income taxes, and you haven't left any money for summer. So with this formula, you should be pretty protected. Something that's very important to keep in mind is that the money that you take home this month, well, let's say we're at the end of the month right now, so let's use October 1st as an example. The money that you take home on October 1st, next week, should not be the money that people are paying you for their October tuition. It should be the money that they paid you in September. The reason for that is that that gives you the full month to collect all of your tuition. Anyone that comes in, they pay you on, say, the 7th, or maybe someone was sick and they came in and paid you on the 14th. If you are taking home on October 1st income that you're expecting to bring in on October 1st, then you could very well be sitting there on October 7th waiting for piano students to pay you so that you can pay your electric bill. And that's a pretty precarious situation to put yourself in. So what you need to do is any money that's brought in September is what you then take home on October 1st. That way you know that that income has already been paid. So that's something that you need to plan ahead for, especially at the beginning of the school year. Let's say that you have people sign up and their first payment to you is on September 1st. You need to already have budgeted from last school year that what you're bringing home on September 1st of this year is actually the income from what they paid you last school year. Because, of course, we've budgeted for the full 12 months. So that 12-month period takes you through September of this year. So your first tuition payments that you receive on September 1st of this year, you don't need for September of this year. You're going to let it sit there for a month, let everybody trickle in, they're all going to pay you, and then you take that home on October 1st. That way you don't have to stress out about it. Retirement savings. You also need to set aside money for retirement. You are self-employed. You're not going to be receiving some big pension when you retire. So you need to discuss with your accountant how much money you should be setting aside from your income every month for retirement as well. All right, as we discussed a little bit earlier in the webinar, is that your piano studio is a business, and therefore you need to have the attitude that this is a business. You need to keep in mind that you train people how to treat you, and if you treat your piano studio as a business, then they will treat your piano studio as a business. And what that means is that when you say, I don't teach makeup lessons, that they take you at your word, because they have been trained from the moment they met you that you are a business owner, that you know what you're doing, you take your business seriously, and when you say, I don't teach makeup lessons, then it's not negotiable. Part of having a business attitude is do not have your students call you by your first name. If my students walked in and called me Colleen, well then suddenly this is real casual. We're all just there. We're all just hanging out, having fun. No, this is a piano studio. I am the teacher. I am the person that's in authority here in my piano studio. My students call me Ms. Cole. Of course, I don't mind if the parents call me Colleen, but the students call me Ms. Cole, even if they've been taking from me for 10 years. My name is Ms. Cole. Another part of having a business attitude is to not touch your students. We live in a day and age where touching a child can be seriously taken the wrong way. So you need to protect yourself from anyone thinking that your motives are anything different than what they are. So don't touch your students. Don't hug them. Even when you're showing them hand position, you can show them your hand position and put your hand down on the keys. Okay, now you try it. You really don't need to be sitting there literally holding their hand to show them correct hand position. Even in my piano studio, when I need a student to, say, move their hand, if they have their hand on, say, D, E, and F, and I need their hand on E, F, and G, I take the little marker that I'm using to mark on their books, and I use the marker to kind of push their hand over to the next key instead of actually using my hand. It's just a way to stay professional. It's also a way to stay germ-free. It'll keep you from getting sick if you're not touching these little students that have been out playing in the dirt and things like that. Another part of having a business attitude is to have an open visiting policy for parents. And what that means is that make it clear that the parents are welcome to walk into your piano studio at any time. Your door is unlocked. You have nothing to hide. They're welcome to walk in at any time. They don't need to knock. They don't need permission. Just come on in. However, having said that, do not allow parents to sit through the entire class. There are two reasons for that. Number one, if you have a parent in the class, it disrupts the student-teacher dynamic. And what I mean is that if you have a student that's sitting there and they're misbehaving and their parent is sitting in a chair in the corner, who's going to correct that child? Can you correct the child? I mean, the parent is sitting there and doing nothing, and this isn't even your child. So it's kind of difficult for you to correct a child when the parent is sitting there doing nothing. At the same time, does the parent correct the child? It's your piano class. The parent's just observing. The parent can't really interject into your piano class to discipline the child. Also, many of you have probably noticed that children behave better when their parent is not in the room. It's something that I've been observing for decades now, that when a child is near their parent, their behavior is much worse. They tend to behave the way society expects them to behave when their parent is not there. So you will find that your life is much easier when the parent is not near the child. Also, another reason for not allowing the parent to sit through the class is that the parent is only paying tuition for one person to attend this class. The parent is only paying for the child to attend the class. If the parent sits through the class, even though they're not sitting at a keyboard, they're going to learn everything that you're teaching, and they are therefore receiving a free piano lesson. So what you need to do in your first piano lesson when the parent comes in, because they don't know how things work in your studio, they don't know if they don't know if they're supposed to stay. What am I supposed to do? So when the parent comes in at the first lesson, come on in, let's get situated, and then turn to the parent and say, class will be over at 5:15. You're welcome to come pick them up then. And they go, oh, okay, and they head on out. So that's something that you need to establish at the very first lesson. Therefore, that way there's never any question. Another thing about, this same thing with the open door policy with the parents is leave all the windows open in your studio. And I don't necessarily mean like open windows, but leave your shades open, I should say. Let the parents see in. If you're teaching piano in your home, try to teach piano in a front room so that when the parents pull up to your house, they can see the students. They don't feel that their child is being, taken off down some dark hallway into some room where they have no idea what's going on. If you're in the front of your living room or in a front bedroom or, like I said, in a room above the garage, then when the lights are on, the parents can see in. They don't have to be in the room to know that their child is safe. They can see the child. They can see what's going on. It just makes everyone feel more comfortable. And of course, you have nothing to hide, so there's no reason not to do these things. As I said before, part of having a business attitude, I do not teach makeup lessons. The whole idea of makeup lessons came from, the little spinster sitting in her living room wondering, how am I ever going to earn any money to feed myself, because I'm just this little spinster and I'm not allowed to go out and get a job, so maybe someone will want to come along and take a piano lesson. And those spinsters were so desperate that, if someone said, I can't come to piano today, well, okay, come tomorrow, because I need for you to come to your piano lesson. That's not the day and age that we live in anymore. You have created a business. These people have signed up for a piano lesson on a certain day at a certain time, and that is when their piano lesson is taught. If they do not show up for their piano lesson, well, it's really not your problem. You were there. You taught the lesson. They decided to not come. So you do not want to get in the habit of teaching makeup lessons. As I said before, in our example, the teacher in our example had 55 students. You can see how you would end up teaching 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, if every student that said, well, I have a soccer game tonight, I can't make it. Well, we're having a spaghetti social dinner at church tonight, so we're going to come on Saturday instead. It would just be a nightmare. They're signing up for a class. If they don't come to the class, then they need to come by your piano studio and pick up the music that they missed. We have a lot more information about the makeup lessons and different types of rules that you might want to have in your piano studio in our webinar titled Creating Your Teaching Schedule and Student Contract, because all of these items like makeup lessons are spelled out in the student contract. So they know when they sign up for piano lessons that makeup lessons are not an option. Something to keep in mind is that your piano students are just your clients. Your piano students are literally a means for you to pay your bills. And yes, we as teachers are nurturers by nature. That's why we became teachers. We want to help these students. We like working with children. We love seeing them grow and seeing them blossom into pianists. We really enjoy all of that. But keep in mind that these students are not your family. They're probably most likely not even your friends. They are your clients. So what you need to do is nurture your family, but teach your students. You will have students that will take piano from you for 6 or 7 years, and when they decide to quit, they just won't sign up the next year. They will not send you a thank you note. They will not come and tell you how much they're going to miss you. To them, this was a service that they were paying for, and it's a service they no longer need. It's fine to become emotionally attached to your students. If you have students that you really like and you really enjoy, then have fun teaching them. But don't get upset when they move on and you realize that they did not feel this bonding. So just keep in mind your students are just your clients. And if they decide they don't want to take anymore, that's fine. I have other students that do want to come in and be my clients, and I will use their tuition now to pay my bills. And that way you will you won't get your feelings hurt, and you'll really enjoy teaching piano. So a little bit about money and happiness. It's good to have goals to set, and go ahead and set them high. If you have a goal of how many students you want to have, go ahead and set that goal. Whether it's, my dream is to have 70 students every year, or my dream is to have 90 students every year, or my dream is to have 30 students every year. Go ahead and set your goal. However, when you reach your goal, don't just turn around and set your goal even higher. If your goal was to have 55 students, then when you get those 55 students, don't turn around and say, wow, it'd be really nice if I had 70. No, your goal was to have 55 students. When you get those 55 students, now it's time to enjoy it. Be happy with yourself. Say, I've reached my goal. This is exactly what I wanted, and now I have it. Now I'm going to enjoy it. It's very much human nature to always think that I need just a little bit more than what I have. If I have 55 students, then everything would be perfect. It'd be great. And then you get 55 students. If I had 70 students, then things would be wonderful. Well, guess what's going to happen when you get 70 students? At that point, now you're going to want 90. No, when you didn't have any students, you felt that your dream was to have 55. When you reach 55, pat yourself on the back, put a big smile on your face, and enjoy it. Whether or not you're content with where you are in life is completely a choice. Happiness is a choice. And if you decide my goal is to have 30 students, then when you get those 30 students, whether or not you're happy with those 30 students is completely your decision. It's a choice. So just a little bit of spiritual advice about owning a business is just to enjoy it. Don't always sit there and tell yourself that your business needs to be bigger and bigger and bigger. No, enjoy what you have. That was your goal. You made it. Now it's time to smile. All right, so that's the end of our presentation. You can go ahead in the GoToMeeting software panel and click that little orange rectangle with the white arrow to reopen that panel. And the chat window down at the bottom of your screen, you're welcome to go ahead and type in any questions and send those to me, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. So while you're typing, I'm going to take a little drink of water. Okay, let's see here. Okay, first question. I have a mom that already is in the habit of staying for her child's lesson. What should I do? Well, you need to put a stop to that. I'm sure you've probably already found that you have behavioral problems with that student, most likely. It may not have ever dawned on you that you are now teaching the mom how to play the piano for free. You really need to put a stop to it, and put a stop to it now. So at your very next piano lesson, you just have to have the courage that as they're walking in, kind of maybe stand in the doorway and let the child come in, and then tell the mom, her lesson will be over at 5:15. You're welcome to come pick her up then. And she'll probably just go, oh, I can't stay? And you can just say, you know, it's my new policy in my studio that that the parents are not allowed to stay during the piano lesson. You're welcome to come in and check on her, make sure she's fine, but it would really work out better for the dynamic. The student-teacher dynamic is healthier, is better when the parent's not in the room. That way I can work directly with the child. So that should take care of it. Also, teaching in groups really solves that problem. You know, any parent that is hesitant to leave their child alone, they feel much safer leaving their child when there's a whole group of children. It's not just you and the student. So teaching in classes, if you don't already teach in classes, that should solve any hesitation that the parent has about leaving the child alone. All right, let's see here. Let me scroll through the other questions. How can I find out what to charge in my area? The best way is if you're already teaching piano, if you're already teaching private lessons and you're converting to group piano, charge the same amount that you've been charging for private lessons. Number one, you already know that you're happy earning that kind of money for a piano lesson, so you know you won't feel that you're being taken advantage of or anything. But also, a group piano class is actually a better piano lesson than a private lesson. Most people think, oh, if it's one-on-one, if she's getting this attention directly from the piano teacher, then that's definitely superior than having to share her time with this teacher, with the other students. But that's not true. When you're in a group piano class, the students work harder because, of course, they're now working to keep up with their friends. The students are expected to be able to sight read. They're expected to pay attention in class and process the information on their own, because in a private lesson they know, oh, I don't have to pay attention to what she's saying. As soon as I miss the note, she's going to show me what the name, you know, what key I'm supposed to be pushing down. But in a group piano class, they better pay attention, because when we go to the pianos, you're expected to be able to play this. And so from the very beginning, these students are receiving a far superior lesson than a private lesson. So you want to charge, you certainly don't want to charge less for a group piano class. Now, if you're not already teaching piano and you're trying to decide how much to charge, what you can do is find out what people pay for other activities in your area. Ballet, karate, things like that. But also keep in mind that activities like ballet and karate, they can put 40 students in one room, in one class. And so the tuition for those large classes is going to be less than what it would be for your piano studio. So find out what they pay for karate and ballet, and then, but don't think that you have to charge that little for those activities. Sorry, my phone's in here ringing, and I don't want to get up and move it because then I can't answer questions. So you're going to have a ringing phone in the background. Okay, let's see here. What other questions do we have? Let's see here. Do you think students should order their own music? It's completely up to you. I always order all of my books for all of my students, and I would say that the vast majority of our teachers order all of the books for their students. The reason for that is, of course, if you have them ordering their books one at a time, they're going to pay much more in shipping to ship one book than it would be if we shipped, say, 30 books. To ship an order, you're basically paying the post office or FedEx to take one box from here to there. Whether that box has one book in it or 30 books in it, yes, the price does go up as you add more books, but it doesn't go up significantly. So the price per book for shipping goes way down the more books you order. Also, if you have your students order their own book, many students just don't. They procrastinate. The parents just didn't get around to it. I'm really busy. So now you're sitting here teaching a class, and one or two students in the class don't even have a book. So that just makes life much more difficult for you. Ordering the books is a pass-through expense, so you don't need to worry about, wow, it's going to cost me like $500 to order these books. Well, you need to be charging that price to the students. And, if you put the cost of the books on a credit card, then you're not actually paying for those books until 30 days later, and by then the students have already paid you for all of the books, so you don't need to worry about that. Okay, let's see here. Do you charge a recital fee? No. A lot of teachers don't even give recitals, but if you do want to give a recital, there's really no reason to charge a fee for it. A recital is basically just a good marketing tool for your studio, for the beginner students to hear some of your advanced students and to get really excited about the piece that they might be learning next year or a couple years later. It always amazes me how the students remember exactly what so-and-so played at a recital 3 years ago, because they hear these pieces and they think, oh wow, I can't wait until I can learn that. And so it really helps build up momentum to get students to come back in the fall. Okay, let's see here. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any other questions, but let me just scroll through, make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, Mayron just put in a comment that we did have a teacher one year talking about having the parents sit through the classes. We had a teacher one year that called us up in a complete panic because she said that the year before she had a parent that sat through all of her child's classes for the entire school year, and the teacher didn't think anything of it because she didn't have a rule saying that they couldn't do that, so the parents sat through the entire class. And the next fall, that parent opened up a piano studio 2 blocks away from our teacher. That our teacher had actually been sitting there the entire school year training this parent how to teach group piano. And that parent decided, you know what, I can do this. I'm going to open a piano studio. And so for free, this teacher just trained this woman how to be a group piano teacher, and now she had competition. So no, you don't want to have parents sitting through your piano class. Yet another reason to not allow that. Let's see here. All right, I think that I've answered all of the questions. If you do find that you have any questions later on, you're welcome to send them to us via email, and we'll answer them for you at any time. I just want to remind you that you will be receiving a recording of this webinar and a written outline of this webinar, and I will email those to you on Monday. So I hope that you enjoyed our webinar, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. and we wish you the best of luck with your piano studio. Thanks a lot. Bye.